Hi, and welcome to Random Rogers Big Picture for the week of April 6th, 2008. I want to talk about something that I found in Business Week. Last week's Business Week I didn't get around to until Thursday night this week. A little slow. Page 104, I don't know that you're going to be able to see this very well, but basically it profiles all of the, or not all of, but a bunch of superstar money managers who are part of the Masters Select Equity Mutual Fund, and how they all had rough years, or 6 of them did anyway. I don't know how many are in this fund. And that the fund itself was down 8%. It notes Bill Miller was down almost 16%. Chris Davis, another big name that you probably know, down 7.3%. A few other names that I don't know as well. Mason Hawkins, that's a pretty big name, down 9.5%. William DeLonzo, I don't know who the name is, but he manages the Brandywine Fund, down 13%. So, in bringing that up, the reason to bring that up is to talk about, these guys, they're in this fund, presumably, in business we call them fund maestros. They're in this fund, presumably, because they are very good at what they do, and you shouldn't be thrown by a bad year. This is not a pitch for the fund, but it's something I've talked about before, and it means something to understand that's very important. You, in managing your own portfolio, just like these guys, you have some sort of style or approach or method or whatever, and your method works better in certain markets than it does in others. And so for these guys, Chris Davis, I know the most about his portfolio, chock full of financials. They've owned them forever in that fund, and I've heard him make comments about, the tax bite being so big. I mean, he's a young guy. I think he's younger than I am, so maybe the positions are legacy positions from when his dad or his grandfather, whatever that family tree looks like, was managing the fund. And so that explains why his fund is down. Well, buying financial stocks and holding on to them in certain cycles works just fine. It's a very fine way to go most of the time. 2007 happened to be a period where that was not the case. And this is a point that I've touched on before, is, certain styles work certain times, other times not. If you're a growth manager, you're going to lag when value does well. If you're a value manager, you're going to lag when growth does well. If you focus on foreign, you probably lagged in the 90s. If you focus on domestic, you probably are lagging this decade. I think you get the idea. And which kind of leads to another point, which I don't think I've gone this far in saying, which is, okay, if you can buy into the notion that what it is that you do does have strengths and weaknesses, it does lend itself to certain markets, not so much to other types of markets, you better figure out where your strengths are, what type of market you are likely to do better in, and what type of market you're not. I talk about all the time about how I would expect, the portfolios I manage, in a most easy and obvious to see is next time the market's up 25 or 30%, I would expect I'm going to lag that. My bias to want to try and protect on the downside, hopefully that means that I continue to do well when the market's going down. But take a look at what you're doing, wrap your hands around, and understand when it is you're going to lag. It doesn't matter that there are periods where you might lag, but maybe that tells you, if a certain type of environment is not your strong suit, maybe that tells you to ease up on whatever. Volatility, exposure, pick your poison, try to differentiate. For me, I guess it would be, if I thought the market was going to go up, is to look more like the index than I do now. I really, based on some of the statistics we use, I don't really look anything like the S&P 500, which is our benchmark. And if I thought we were going to skyrocket, and there will be a year where we do skyrocket, it makes sense for me to look more like the index, whatever that means when the time comes, whether it is individual stocks or sector ETFs, doesn't really matter right this second, other than it's kind of in the back of my head as to what maybe I need to do. I don't have to have everything planned out right here, right now. But this is a crucial concept to get in touch with. No one These guys are smarter, the smartest guys in the room, presumably, and they had crappy years last year. Doesn't mean they're crappy managers, far from it. It's just you will have a bad year in some sort of environment, and you will have a good year in some other sort of environment, hopefully. I mean, if you can never have a good year, then I think you really need to go back to the drawing board, which is a tough thing to say, but, that's the truth. One other point I wanted to follow up on with regard to the UBS ETNs. I think I'm going to do a write-up on them for TheStreet.com. This is something I talked about ages ago, like early, like 2004 when I first started the blog, and mentioned it every so often. One of the things that we see with manias, which I think is a better word than bubble, because I think manias happen more often than a true bubble. I think the word bubble gets misused, is that when something gets popular, they create products to cater to that popularity. We're seeing that in spades now with commodity stuff. So we've got 8 ETNs from UBS. The Elements folks have listed several that I haven't even written about, but several that they've come out with. There's just a lot of these things out there. The Greenhaven Fund, I think I did write about that one for the Street. There's a bunch of different ones out there, and they are creating supply to try to sate the demand. That becomes a problem. It's not a fundamental thing about supply and demand of the actual, of corn or sugar or whatever, or anything to do with the super cycle bull that Jim Rogers has been talking about for a while. It's not that, but it creates a problem. Every theme has pluses and minuses. Creating more supply of product is a negative. It's either a negative that trumps the positives, or it's not. That's for you to decide. But that is something to really be cognizant of, because it does, eventually it matters. At some point, the run in commodities end. Maybe Jim Rogers is right. Maybe it's not until 2017. Or maybe he's wrong. Maybe it's next month. I don't know. But this is the type of thing to be cognizant of. I talked about this before this started happening with the internet. They created, in that case, supply was IPOs. They created a ton of it, and it crushed the market. This happens over and over. Now it's commodity stuff. It'll be something else in the future. Maybe it was solar stocks for a while in 2007. It seemed like there were a lot of IPOs. China stocks, similar thing. There was a lot of IPOs. This is something to learn about and understand. Boy, this is a cornucopia sports weekend. Final Four, Red Sox at Blue Jays. We got the preview, or the freeview rather, of the DirecTV extra innings. Lacrosse, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a great lacrosse game. Good weekend. Almost as good as March. Have a great weekend.